and the government as a whole to use negotiation to make sure that no demonstration takes place per se in December, even though I'm not in any way supporting the 5 years mandate or stepping down after 3 years or so on, but for the sake of national peace, I believe there should be a negotiation between the government or the members of the 3 years Jotna to bring understanding that there is no need to demonstrate in December instead of trying to bring in a source of power or source of threat to threaten young people. And this will take me back to the various speeches in Birkama where these ministers made very scary statements about the 3 years Jotna, and they made very scary statements to young people, statements that, if not handled well, may lead to chaos in the country. Don't you think as national security advisor, it is wise again to advise these people to be mindful of the type of speeches they give, especially when it has to do with national security? Because I believe if the particular measures being taken by the government right now should continue, and the 3 years Jotna team continue on what they're doing, it may breach the national peace of this country. So what is your take on that? Thank you.
Thank you. Is that clear for now?
It's clear. Thank you very much, my brother. I think you have said all. The dialogue leads to what? Prevention. I think, essentially, the security sector reform is looking at the picture and what was happening before, and it wants us to move away from that. So I think if we can have dialogue, if the two parties or whatever can listen to each other, I think that will be able to prevent whatever foreseen eventuality. But it's a debate and it is still ongoing. When you are on the side of the security, they also look at the legality. It is important for us to understand at this juncture that we are in a transition. We have got some constitutional draconian laws that I don't think any of us here wants to see it. So if Mr. Marina and team cleans up everything, I believe we will be guided by laws that will eventually build a very civil and democratic environment where probably we may not have even the hassle of thinking about some of these issues. But currently, you have a security sector that is guided by the 1997 Constitution. And again, the issue of legality, loyalty, commitment, peace, and stability. So this is where I think both parties need to look at it. You have arguments in other areas. That's not my domain. I didn't want to mention it. So I think I would try as much as possible to accept that we need to know that, the country has rules and regulations and there are laws that will also help. We also have to understand that the people, whoever may have gone to the street, belongs to the country. So that dialogue you are talking about, I think, is very essential here, where we should ensure that we prevent any eventuality. So the two teams should be concerned, should be able to look at the steps they are taking. Because people quote, and we quote the Constitution, the 5 years in the Constitution, the electoral calendar, and so many things. Here is my brother who, upon all the completion, would probably have to take the document to a referendum. I am doing the strategies. So reform process are also not completed. But this is a personal opinion. Probably sometimes what I advise, the president, I may not be preview to share it with you here. But let me say I'm a concerned citizen like any of you. I have children. And then the president, the ministers, everybody in the government equally shares the same. So prevention is better than cure, I think that's a good idea. Thank you for that contribution.
Thank you so much. Amar, was your question answered? Was your question answered? Okay, we'll leave it at that. All right, so now what I'll do is I will read the questions. I have some, actually 2 for now, in the ballot box, quite a lot of them. And the first one I got here is, this is about security sector reform. So this is for you, Cornel Baji. There are youth, hello, are we here? All right. There are youth in jail at the moment. How can they get support to have access to lawyers for justice under the security sector reform process?
Foremost, let me make it clear that the process is still on. That's why I emphasize the status. But nonetheless, there is an existing government which I am part of and which I am privileged to be advising His Excellency the President on security matters. And I sit also at the level of national security. You see, sometimes it is very difficult. And that's why I think the dialogue, is important. The youths are the future leaders, like I stated before. They form a very critical component of the Gambian society. This current government are looking forward to passing the baton and the mantle to you and those youths who are in the prisons. So my advice would be, whatever we want to do, we are lucky we have found this newfound democracy. But democracy also have rules where you should not go beyond your bound. When you go beyond your bound, you are probably infringing on another person.
What's going beyond your boundary?
Going beyond your boundary is, for instance, now not looking at the available laws and the legal frameworks that are existing. So if you, because most of the time this is what the security embark on. When, for instance, detaining somebody more than 72 hours, now we have the CSOs, we have, yes, human rights commissions, they fought it. So in most cases, you don't see people detained more than 72 hours. But then it is also a process that also links up with the Ministry of Justice and the judiciary. So it's a very small, complex issue, but let me just say, the government is here for everybody, and then the outcome of this meeting, I am sure, will take, note of, what you have just mentioned. So let's continue the dialogue. Let's see the government, let's see the country as ours, and then we will be able to have, our objective, which is to transform this country in such a way that democratic norms and values are respected. So this is where we are transforming or transitioning towards. It may not happen now, but I think in the future, we will all be happy that we have a new Gambia.
Thank you so much. Now, the second question is, was the decision of the Attorney General in releasing the junglers based on law or moral grounds? Why, if any? Yes. Mr. Barrow, that's your question.
I'm not a lawyer, thankfully, so I cannot answer whether it's based on legal grounds or any other reason. And when it comes to morality, what's moral is subjective, is fluid. So you may think something is moral, another person may say it's not moral. I didn't release the junglers. I'm probably the wrong person to be asked that question. So because I'm not the one that released them, I think that question should have been for the Attorney General. Unfortunately, he's not here and I'm not his representative, so I can't answer that.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that was, I was even thinking that the Attorney General should have been on this platform, because these are a little bit, for example, the access to justice question and his question, but unfortunately, we're unable to have that. But then we can still tailor it down to our understanding and into the perspective of the reform process. Now let me go back to, yes, I see a hand over there. Yes, okay, I'll go there and then come here. Yes. Your name, which institution you're from, and who you're directing the question to.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have questions for all the three gentlemen sitting there.
Okay.
I'd like to ask the first one to the security advisor of the present government. I believe when Omar asked his question, you did make mention of the fact that the security sector reform is ongoing. But I guess when we ask you questions here, it's not, but it might not be just about the security sector reform, but also to question some of the things that are going on, because you're the security advisor to the President of the Republic. So we've seen a reoccurrence of things that have happened in the past which were a threat to our national security. We've seen something that is very close to what happened in 2000 with the students' demonstration. We've seen it happen last month. We've seen what happened to the youth and how our security forces retaliated. And as young people, when we are having dialogues like this, particularly when we are having it with people holding the position that you're holding, we want to emphasize on the point that our people, young people, we are not a threat to national security. We are not enemies of the state, so we should not be treated as such. So now it brings me to my question. What are you doing as National Security Advisor to advise the President on matters like this, on things that happened in the past, which actually contributed a lot into bringing about dictatorship and are happening again in this present government, right? I don't think we need to wait for the whole security sector reform to complete to be able to address these issues, particularly on your level as a government. And then you also make mention of the legalities of some of these things when he asks about the 3 years judgment, which brings me to my question to the CRC, Seni. What is the commission going to do to make sure that laws like the Public Order Act are looked into? Is it mandated to look into it? Because we have a section in the 1997 Constitution guaranteeing people the right to go out and demonstrate. And we have, on the other hand, a colonial law seizing that right from the people, asking people to actually ask for request or permit from a particular person to be able to go out there and speak out about their problems or voice out their issues with the government. What is the CRC going to do about that? And then again, one more question for the security advisor, national security advisor. What mechanisms or what are you doing on your level as the security sector reform, like working on the security sector reform to make sure that women are included in the process? How are women going to be included? Because we have women serving in the military force, serving in the police, women in uniform, our service women who've been sidelined and marginalized for the longest time in the security. They face problems when they have to be promoted. They face problems of violence and harassment. And sometimes they do not even have places to report these cases to, because the same people they're supposed to report to, those are the same people who are the perpetrators causing these things onto them. So how are you going to engage women? How are you going to make sure that you have women on the senior levels of these institutions making decisions that are going to impact their work as service women in the security sector? So these are, I'll just leave it at that before I come.
Thank you so much. Yes, let her leave it at that at the moment. And we give the floor to, yes, Cornell. Yeah.
Thank you very much, my mother or my grandmother. I think the questions he raised, they are all, pertinent to this, forum. You see, in a transition, there are a lot of things that happen, because essentially transition is moving from one point to another. And what is now happening, you see, you find out that the security have got their own position, and the youths also are clinging on a position. In this situation, we have laws, we have an act that is still been, that is existing and still been, used by the police, or let me say the security sector in general. And then we have a democracy where everybody is very, very eager to get to the destination. You see, sometimes we also have to reflect back and look at the country and say, I mean, are there any laws in the country? Because the security will argue that there are certain actions, if they are allowed to continue, it will epitomize or symbolize lawlessness in the country. That's an argument. It's debatable. Then you have our newfound democracy, where sometimes we talk about misconception to the extent that people will want to see the police or maybe the security to move away from some of, I mean, the issues and their practices, but then the practices are still existed. So sometimes moral comes into being. What do I do? Do I look at humanity? Do I follow, I mean, loyalty and commitment to the law? So it's a very complex issue. But I can assure you, we are not waiting for the laws to be, I mean, the process of security reform to be completed before we can address the matters. I think you have seen in certain circumstances, there was dialogue and then the process didn't go far, even where it started at the, I mean, the level of the courts. So sometimes again, the transitional justice, I mean, chain is a long one. It involves almost, I mean, the security sector, and also it involves the Minister of Justice. So it's a complex one, but let me say your, I mean, concerns are noted. To move to the second one, how concerned is the security sector reform taking on board, I mean, the issues of women or gender? I can assure you, and I think I want to thank our sister Rebecca, who have been, I mean, and her institution, the UNDP, stood very firmly to fund and support the process of gender mainstreaming in the security sector. I think she can attest to the fact that among the implementation process we are doing and amongst the thematic areas, it is gender mainstreaming that has gone very far, because we've completed training on beginners, intermediates, and recently advanced. And then the outcome of that is we launch, I mean, a nationwide gender caravan. So gender is taken seriously, and in the security sector reform, it falls under the thematic area which we call, I mean, cross-cutting and perennial challenges. So we take women seriously. We are not even looking at numbers. We want their participation. We align ourselves also to regional and sub-regional, I mean, frameworks. If you look at the AU framework, it is talking about 30%. We have not arrived at 30%. We are still working towards it. But let me assure you that it is a concern, and so far in our implementation process, it is gender mainstreaming that is ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Colonel. Okay, yes, Sani, before I move on.
I don't think your question has nothing to do with the Constitutional Review Commission.
Well, it was.
No, it was not
Okay.
security.
Thank you. So I'll move on to, yeah, I saw her. Oh, yeah. Okay, her first, and then we'll come to you. Sure.
My question goes,
Your name, please, and where you're from?
my name is Dabu Sisi. I'm from Cali. My name is Dabu Sisi. I'm from Cali. My question goes to Mr. Barrow. Yesterday, I have learned about no one is above the law of the country. But my question is why young Patrulli appear at the TV and did not testify? Is he above the law of the country, or he have the right not to testify? Because this confuses many youths. We all see how youths come out when young people refuse to testify. So we are confused. We wanted to know
Mr. Barrow, the question is Yankuba Ture above the law? Why didn't he testify just like any other person?
Why are you asking me all these lawyer questions? I'm not a lawyer, but I do know that no one is above the law, including the highest person in the country, whoever that may be. No one is above the law. And the TRRC is guided by acts, laws, that say that we can subpoena somebody. So meaning we can write to you and say you have to appear. And when you come, you have to answer our questions. If you refuse to do that, there are consequences. You may end up in some place that you don't want to be. And unfortunately, which is probably not why he is where he is today, but that could have been one of the consequences that happened. But to answer the gist of your question, no one is above the law. No one can say that the law doesn't apply to me. If it applies to one person, it applies to everybody. So, no, he's not above the law. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, I think what you also want to understand is the grounds on which Yankuba did not testify and nothing was done.
Well, I don't know if I would say nothing was done.
He was, okay, something was done, but...
Yeah, he said that he is, basically he is indemnified. Indemnified meaning that at some point a long time ago, probably before you were born, the people in the government decided that we need to protect ourselves from anybody coming after us for anything we've ever done. So they made it into law, and unfortunately, people that we have in parliament and the government supported that law to say that, yes, you have done some terrible things or whatever it is you may have done, you have the right to say nothing can happen to us. So he is saying that because that law was passed by parliament, that gives him indemnity, that gives him immunity, meaning nobody can come after him. It doesn't matter if he killed somebody, if he raped somebody, regardless of what he did at that particular time as a government official, nobody can come after him. Is it a good law? No, it's a bad law. People should be held accountable for their actions. You cannot go there and do bad things to people and come back and say, well, I'm going to protect myself from being held accountable for my actions. Hope that helps.
So I hope that has answered your question that he is not above the law. We all know what the situation is at the moment. So we'll go to her, yes, and then I'll resort back to my papers and come back to you.
Good morning. Is it afternoon now?
It's afternoon already.
Good morning to the host, Malushi. We are glad to see you here, and we like the way you moderated. And good morning to everybody there present. I am Rohi Samba, and I am the communication strategist for SSR. And for yesterday, those who were in our group where I was moderating, some of the questions that Lala asked were well addressed there. Because I'm a woman just like you, and gender is very important to us. But my question goes to CRRC. The CRC, sorry. It's about the Constitution, the Constitutional Review Commission that you have set up. My question is, are you going to ensure that it is reader-friendly? Because as a highly educated woman myself, I'm embarrassed to say I've never read the Constitution of the Gambia unless it is to satisfy a certain need. Where I'm from, for example, when we have issues on maritime affairs and stuff, we would refer to the maritime section. But to really quote something, it's not something I've ever done, and I'm sure I have a lot of people here who have never done that too. It's because the Constitution is legalese, very unfriendly to read, especially if you don't have the law background. I lived in a country, Ghana, for 5 years, where even the Bible is translated into Chui, and all the other languages, including all the languages we have there. Is there a possibility, but that by December, when your work is done, you would have one reader-friendly version where even children can read and understand the Constitution, and also that you have it in the local languages, because in the new Gambia, this is what we expect. It's unfortunate to compare Ghana to Gambia because there you even have essay in local languages before you go to grade 7. But still, it's a step towards the right direction, and I'm just asking if you have it in mind. Thank you.
All right, that's clear, Sani.
Yeah.
Are there plans to make the Constitution legally friendly?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Madam Rohi Samba, my colleague in communication field. Yes, there are plans to simplify the Constitution to the understanding of ordinary layman in the streets of Banjul. I will give you an example. During our in-country consultation, we have printed a lot of leaflet called Frequently Asked Questions about the work we do. We were able to translate all these FAQs into local languages to enable those in the rural Gambia to communicate with us. And under my department at the CRC, we have appointed what we call local language experts. These are, communicators between us and the community. They speak all the local languages. And during our consultation, we were able to use them to communicate with us as to what they want to see in the new draft constitution. But as I said, this comes back to the mandate of the CRC. Our mandate stops when we submitted the constitution in December to the president, to the National Assembly. So there comes the work of the civil society, especially institutions like the National Center for National Civic Education, National Civic Education. So the responsibility lies with them now to, carry out their civic responsibility by informing, educating Gambians about their civic responsibility. This includes the new draft constitution. And the civil society also, is their responsibility to simplify this very important national document so that an ordinary man sitting in Banjul will be able to know what is in this new draft constitution. Our mandate stops when we submit, and I don't think the CRC will be able to, translate this constitution into our local language. That's the role of the civil society. That's the role of individual citizens. That's the role of the National Civic Education Center. Thank you. I hope that answer your question. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I hope that was answered. Thank you. Yes, I'll come back to the floor, Chair. Now, just a moment. I go back to the papers. And yes, the first one I have here again is, how do we ensure the Constitution is implemented and the institution mandated to enforce the law abide by the Constitution? I hope you understand. And the second one is, what is in place for the security personnel that are relieved from the service, in bracket, right sizing? I don't know if that means right season or right sizing. Okay, so we come to Saini and then we go to Cornell. Yeah.
What's the question? The question is to... yeah. Yeah. That's the business of everyone here. How do we ensure that the new constitution is implemented to the latter? That's the role and responsibility of everyone, including the civil society. As I said earlier on, our mandate ends when we draft this new constitution and submit it to the president, to the National Assembly. And now, what do we do? That is the need for institutions like the National Human Rights Commission, the judiciary, the courts. So that is why the new constitution is also looking into the idea of how do we strengthen this key institution so that they will be there to safeguard the proper implementation of the new constitution. How do we ensure that the new constitution is protected? We need to strengthen our institutions, including the courts, the ombudsman, and the National Human Rights Commission. So that is why during our consultation, we had the opportunity to meet all the key stakeholders in the transitional justice process. We met them because they are key stakeholders in this review process. We had conversation with them as to how we can include some of their functions in the new draft constitution. So I think it's important, and it is the business of everyone to ensure that the new constitution, that lot have been spent, that we had a lot of time consulting with the people, is protected and enforced at the end of the day. And I can tell you, with the ownership and with the participation of Gambians, I don't think they will leave everything to go like that. They want a constitution that will stand the test of time. Let me give you an example. In the United States of America, they have a constitution of over 200 years, and this constitution is still there. They amend it, but the amendment has to go through the due process. So we are ensuring that the new constitution cannot be easily amended without going through those due processes. And those due processes are institutions that we are strengthening in the new constitution. So I can assure you that a lot of resources have been spent, a lot of time have been spent, so we cannot allow all these things to go in vain. If that happens, that's a total failure, and we are not in for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think the question is in respect of what will happen to those who will be bidding farewell to the security sector when this right sizing is implemented. And I think for the purpose of clarity, let me just say here that actually right sizing is adopted and it is meant to look at, I mean, whether the current security institution we have would be increased or should be decreased, meaning appropriateness, I mean, have to come in here. When we did our assessment, we spoke to, I mean, listened to everybody, and then there are quotas and there are people who perceive that, I mean, the sector is bloated and therefore it should be reduced. Then when we have started work, and then the security also looked at the whole thing and said, I mean, sometimes it depends on the assessment, the needs, how, I mean, what you do, and then what is necessary on the ground. So the first step that the government did was to come up with a moratorium where there is no, and there will be no, I mean, appointments or recruitment in the military for 3 years, and I can assure you it is still ongoing. For the other security sectors, it is, I mean, 2 years. And in addition, to allow natural attrition to take place, people who probably bid farewell because of circumstances we don't pray for, people who reach, I mean, retirement age, some people were on contract. Once their contracts expire, they are all sent home. So that itself is working on, I mean, this thing, the strength of the sector. Then we also have, I mean, the World Bank is also working with the Minister of Finance, because finance is looking at, I mean, comparing what is being spent on the security sector as opposed to some other competing sectors like health, agriculture, etc. And then the affordability aspect. So World Bank has completed some work with, I mean, and there are options. What will happen is certainly if people are going home, we will look at, I mean, whatever must have been the reason. Let us be clear here. There are people who committed atrocities. You don't even wait for any right-sizing process to handle them. Most of them have been treated, I mean, they have started going home, and we don't even look for pensions or soft landing for them. But those who are probably there, I wouldn't say genuinely, but because of nepotism, etc., they've been appointed. Here, I mean, legally, you look at the laws also. So those ones probably, when they are going home, they will have some soft landing. The issue of redeployment is also revisited. That is when we find out that, for instance, let me say fire service is bloated and prisons need more human resources, where some exercise of redeployment can take place. Right sizing is live and kicking. And by the time we go far into the process, I'm sure we will start, I mean, seeing something. But then it has to go with some, I mean, soft landing, that is pensions, even building capacity, so that when they leave, especially legally, they will be able to compete with their colleagues in the private sector and the private market. Thank you.
Okay, do we have two mics? Oh, Sal, yes, I see you. We'll come to you. We have
Hello.
two mics. Give me a sec.
Yes.
We have two mics or just one? Okay, one. All right, I'll come back to you. Let me just read this question that is directed to Mr. Alaji Barab. And there are two, actually. This one reads, is TRRC only seeking to incriminate former President Yahya Jammeh or to serve justice for all victims? And the other one says, should former President Yahya Jammeh call today on TRRC and deny some of the issues raised and also accept other responsibilities, but later apologizes and seek forgiveness, what will be the fate of the TRRC?
I'll start with the last question. The fate of the TRRC is we are mandated. It's a 2-year commission. At the end of the 2 years, it's done. I don't know what's going to happen thereafter. But if President Jammeh should call and apologize for anything, it's not up to me to forgive him. I'm not a victim. I'm one individual that has never been victimized. And it's not up to me to tell somebody else to forgive another person. That would be up to the victims to forgive if they so desire. Will he be held accountable for his actions? You can still forgive somebody and still hold, still hold them accountable for their actions. For me, those things are not, they don't have to be mutually exclusive. Accountability and forgiveness don't have to be separate. You can forgive somebody for doing wrong, but still hold them accountable for that same wrong. That doesn't mean that you forgive somebody, then that means they go scot-free. Because sometimes what is in you, if you're holding a grudge against somebody, that's something that affects you. So you can forgive somebody, but still say, that doesn't mean you get to go scot-free. But that's not a decision that I would be the one to make. Will I recommend for anybody to go scot-free? No. I think as individuals, as Gambians, all of us, not just Yahya Jammeh, but maybe not you young folks, because a lot of you are very young, but for all of us adults, we've all done Gambia wrong. Every single one of us. There is not a single Gambian that could not have done better by Gambia. And if we look at it from that perspective, to say what could I have done to give a better Gambia, instead of pointing fingers at other people and saying what they have done wrong, I think it could take us far. What was the other question? Okay, yes. The TRRC doesn't have an agenda to incriminate anybody. We are looking at past human rights abuses. And if somebody's name is mentioned, we are obligated to at least reach out to that individual and ask you questions. Or if somebody has been implicated or adversely mentioned, we have an obligation to go after them. If that happens to be Yahya Jammeh, we will do what we can to reach out to him. If he doesn't respond, at least we would still do what we are supposed to do. So it's not just about Yahya Jammeh, because Yahya Jammeh was not the only problem of Gambia. Yahya Jammeh is not here, but some of our problems are still here. So that should tell us Yahya Jammeh is not our only problem. There are lots of problems, and it goes beyond just Yahya Jammeh. The second part of the question, I think, was for victims. The TRRC is very victim-centered. I mean, there were people here that were hurt. There were people who are still crying to this day. And we all have a responsibility to make sure that we heal each and every single victim. So it's not just about going after people to punish them, or going after people to embarrass them, or going after people to incriminate them. It's about healing the nation. Because regardless of what happens, we all want a better Gambia here. And if we just start to, or just try to just incriminate each other or go after each other, that's a journey. At some point, we have to stop and look at each other and say that, I want a better Gambia. And we cannot have a better Gambia unless we hold each other as brothers and sisters. So reconciliation is a part of it, but you cannot also force that on other people. Accountability is more important, holding each other accountable. But I just wanted to put the point across that accountability doesn't just mean that who committed a particular crime. If somebody was committing a crime and you were part of that system and watching that individual commit that crime, you need to look at yourself as well too. Because at some point, you are just as responsible on some level. So I hope I've answered that question.
Thank you so much, Mr. Barrow. Yes, I go back to the floor. Okay, there's someone with the mic, and then we'll come to you. Yes. Before Cherno, I saw him raise his hand first, so we come to him and go to Cherno.
Okay,
Yes.
good afternoon. My name is Alpha Adam, Regional Chairman of Gold Award Holders Association in the Gambia. My question will go to the Security Advisor to the President, where he have mentioned there are some of the policies that they have made across in looking into the security of this country. It's always very nice to read a paper about these securities, but my question is going to him like, we have seen a lot of violations that have happened just recently for the past 3 years. Since he come into office, we have seen other departments have also been brought into light. The anti-crime last, to me, I see it as a replacement of the junglers. Just like the junglers operate in night, for them they operate in the day. The reason here is there are certain things that they made also against human rights. I was once met with them at night, but according to the response that we made, it was not nice to me. As a police officer or as an authority, speaking such a way to a citizen is like a disgracement. They need a special training in way how to respond to citizens. And again, when we were in Kairaba, also police officers was referred as a market people. The way they addressed was totally illegal. So these are some of the things that I think he also need to advise. But my question here is, are you making any, are you making any mechanism of evaluating, like when you brought into a policy, whether it have reflected in the life of the young people? What you have seen here is some of these policies, after operating for 2 or 3 months, you also can advise the president. Let's look into this policy, or let's look into this department that we have introduced, whether it have affected or whether it have worked through. So I'm asking whether you have any mechanism that to evaluate some of these policies that you have made, or are you advising the president on these issues? Thank you.
Okay, I think one of the questions
Mulusi,
was
why don't
on-
we take a couple of questions and then we can allow
Why not
the...
to take all of them? They might forget.
Okay.
Yeah. So one of the question was the punitive measures. Yeah. Yeah, I think the first one was some of the punitive measures adopted by the security forces in addressing some of these crimes. He made mention of the anti-crime and how they address these youngsters most of the times when they find them in the streets or get in conflict with them. And the second one was advising the president with regards to the policies regarding the security. Is that what you said? Okay, just I think briefly, yes.
Okay, I think I had this opportunity to sit with Lamin Dabo, and our focus was on the youths in uniform versus the youths whether in school or those not in uniform. I think this is where the problem came. The problem is. To be candid, let me tell you, this is the concern of virtually everybody. Why do we have youths in uniform versus youths not in uniform? And it's a responsibility that all of us have to be looking at. It's a debate that concerns all of us. I think if we can address some of those issues, eventually these issues relating to anti-crime, heavy-handedness, etc. will be solved. You see, the anti-crime are not purposely out to look for any youth. But what I understand, if I get your question clearly, people are complaining about their approach in the midst of trying to achieve their goal of ensuring that the Gambia is crime-free. People are not happy with the approaches. So this is also another complex issue. But since we are working and then the process is on, a mechanism is something we have started using. That's why in the previous question, I told you about 1 or 2 groups. I think one of them was this Senegambia whatever demonstration, which went up to close to the court, and then there was some intervention, and then they are all free. They are, I mean, at home. So let me just say, my brother, this dialogue, I mean, will continue. The process will handle most of these things, where, I mean, the process of the CRRC, because it's the supreme law. This is where the Police Act, the Armed Forces Act, and all other security issues, even our national security policy, we draw it from the provisions and the acts that is given to ensure that the sovereignty and the integrity of the Gambia is defended, and there is rule of law and respect for human rights. So I think if there is any mechanism, it should come from both sides, and the mechanism should be both of, I mean the two groups, the society and the security. And now we have the civil society organization, which is out to ensure that there are, I mean, checks and balances in our operation as security men. So basically, yes, there are mechanisms to be able to approach and ensure that not all the, I mean, cases go to the far end. But then we also have to look at the country, be very patriotic to the country, and look at probably what will be the end results of whatever we are doing. Because, for instance, the issue of Serekunda market, I don't want to, I mean, go into it because of the current situation. It is still, I mean, on the process is still ongoing. But if you have this opportunity to look at the videos, you will find out that some of the issues we are not restricted to peaceful demonstration. And this is what we are saying, that we need to dialogue, we need to really debate, we need to look at our country, and we need to look at what type of country as youths you want to get, I mean, receive from us. I think it is a country that is very secure. So the responsibility, I want to conclude by saying it is ours.
All right. So what we'll do now is, yes, take few questions, say 3, and then we'll allow the panelists to answer. He was the next person, then Cherno, and then Sa.
Good afternoon. My name is Amadou Diallo from Gambia We Want. My concern is about the current situation between the people, or let's say the citizens, and the police. We've seen what have transpired at Bijilo when the military came and intervened. We were able to have peace at that area. And I believe when we talk about the police, they should have been there with the people in the communities. But if the police cannot control the tensions in our communities, that the military personnel have to come and intervene to make sure that peace and tranquility is sustained in that area, then I will question the police. And here also, my question is, what is your office as the security advisor to the president doing to make sure that the relationship between the police and the citizens, or the people, or the young people of the Gambia is very smooth? Because looking at the moment that we are here at this moment, is very fragile. Whenever youths are gathered and the police are there, always the youth see the police as threats, as well as the police see the youth as threat, different from when the military personnel are there. So what is your office doing to make sure that the relationship between the police and the young people is smooth?
Thank you so much. Yes, Cherno. The mic, yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cherno Gay. I am a poet, so I'm going to speak in my capacity as a poet and, of course, as a citizen. To the security advisor to the president, since this is a dialogue, I would like to say something. That is one, I have been following the questions they have been saying. We have not been able to My issue is this. Omar asked about what is your position regarding the 3 years thing. Lala did a follow-up question, but we haven't been able to hear a satisfactory answer. We have seen the things that were happening in Jammeh's time happening right now. And it's either, I don't know what you're telling the president, but he is not listening or doing anything about it. I'm tired of it. As young people of this country, we need to see change, and the changes are not happening. We're only having this kind of conversations where we ask the questions and you tell us what we want to hear, you go back to your offices and forget about it, and then the problem continues. We want to change that. Moving on, Constitutional Review Commission. Our position as far as the Public Order Act is concerned, the Public Order Act is a bad law, and it is below the Constitution. And it's constitutionally, it is our right to exercise our freedom of assembly, that is demonstration or whatever it is called. So, how come a law that is inferior to the Constitution is being upheld by you people to deny us our constitutional right? It is a bad law, and since it is a bad law, then it becomes a responsibility and duty on us as citizens to exercise civil disobedience, which is what the people who demonstrated at Brikama did, which is what the people who demonstrated at Westfield did, which is what the people who demonstrated at Serekunda did. So, right now what we need is for you people to take up the responsibility and take tangible actions. To the security advisor, we want to know what your plan is as far as the 3 years Jotna is concerned. Because whether we take it or not, there are people who support the 3 years, there are people who support the 5 years. And despite what the Constitution says, these two forces will clash come the 3 years. So what is in place? Because as the advisor, it is your duty to be able to see every possible case scenario as far as the situation is concerned. And right now, I think we should be prepared for the worst case scenario, which could lead to loss of life and a lot of violence. So what is the plan at the State House as we speak? Because the 3 years is already here, and if you people don't have a plan, then we are facing an Armageddon. That's what. So we want specifically, what is the security advisor telling the president regarding the demonstration, the killing at Faraba, the abuse we have seen the anti-crime unit is doing? What specifically are you telling the president? What is the clear-cut plan as far as the 3 years Jotna is concerned? And to the CR, my question is this. What is your position regarding the Public Order Act? Because when this politician came to power, it didn't take them that long to change the age limit in the Constitution. So how come they cannot change a law that is not even a Constitution, and they're telling us the Supreme Court upheld it? So I think what we are all as young people, the only thing, the questions that we have been telling you all the time, the point we are trying to make is this. We have had these conversations before, endlessly. We have had these questions with people in your position before, and we have had the same answers, but the same problem are there. What are you people ready to do different to change this country? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and that's noted. We move on to Sal, yes, before we come back.
Thank you very much. It's very difficult to speak after Cherno's expose. First of all, I greet all the persons sitting on the stage. I have two questions. The first question is on the CRC. I believe Seni, the CRC has gone to the length and breadth of the country to solicit the views of Gambians as to the constitution we want. I believe Activista with the other groups have also gone and solicited views of Gambians from all walks of life. Your act also stipulates certain values that cannot be, that have to be in the constitution, things like 2 terms and so on and so forth. Now, what mechanism do you have or methodology that would determine the information you've received from the public and what should be in or outside the draft constitution? That's my question to Mr. Seni Marena. Now, to my big brother, a special advisor to the president. I think the big elephant in this room or in the country when it comes to security does not need security experts. The biggest threat to our internal security is the tension between the security forces and the ability to manage the young people. And it's not about who's right or who's wrong, but this is a real tension. In your engagement as security advisor, what policies do you have to ensure that this real tension, a potential implosion, which nobody wants, but is real, is managed? The young people of Gambia, who didn't know democracy, suddenly have this thing called democracy. They're grappling with what it means, rightly or wrongly. The security forces who operated under a dictatorship up till now are still struggling to manage themselves and police and maintain law order in a democracy. There's a contestation of these two areas, and it has to work. What specific steps are you taking? What kind of engagement are you making to ensure that come December, people who want to express themselves can express themselves, who want to go about their business can go about their business in peace? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sal. Now we come back to the panelists. Let me start with Cornell. I think Sal's question, Cherno's question, and his question are more or less interlinked. This has to do with the police and the young people, the relationship between the police and the young people. The police not seeing the young people as a threat, young people not seeing police as a threat, but also what concrete plans are there from the government's part to see to it that the issues that happened in the past do not replicate themselves again. December is almost here and the tension might be a little bit high.
Thank you very much. I think if I can understand, the whole issue centers around, like my brother has just stated, how do we manage this relationship that is beginning to get sour, and that is between the security and the young people. I think, in my opinion, I would say again, it is our responsibility, all of us, to ensure and make sure that there is no lawlessness in this country. I will come to it because the Public Order Act and everything has been mentioned. I have said when we assessed the whole, we went out for consultation nationwide. One of the issues that came out has something to do with how do we manage our police and our security sector. And that's why we have a recommendation and a program line that we call addressing institutional issues and addressing issues and capacity relating to institutions, meaning the armed forces, the police, the fire service, etc. So most of these things, you cannot come and then just treat them like that. What we did is we translate all that we got from the assessment and started with a policy. So if you look at the policy, national security policy, you will find out that a lot has been captured and a lot is there to ensure that at the end of the tunnel, we will have, looked at most of these issues and ensure that, we address them. The one fundamental thing is community policing, which was very, very absent here. We've just recently concluded, the consultation, or there was a workshop on it. You see, the assessment, I think, also brought that to light, that there is a distance between the police and the community. The understanding how the community should be treated, and then how in return, how the police should be treated by the community. So these are all part of what we are looking at. Probably to give you a short answer right now would be difficult. But what I will also say, anything that happens becomes a lesson for us in the security sector. And I believe it should equally serve as a lesson to our very important component of the society and the country, which is the youth. We are really concerned